Hey guys, welcome to A Little Bit of Monica. I am super excited because we are about to head into Halloweekend week 4. Hopefully everybody knows what Halloweekend is by now, but if you don't and you're new to this readathon, this is a month-long October readathon created and hosted by Lexi from Books with Lexi, along with 4 other co-hosts. Everybody will be tagged in the description. Make sure that you're subscribed to everyone because they are incredible and always have great content. Like I said, this is a month-long readathon, and basically we're given some prompts that we pick some books to fit, and then we try to read them over the course of the 5 weekends in October. I have a couple of books planned for this weekend, and I'm really excited to get into what those are going to be, and we're going to see if I can keep up with my kind of fast-paced TBR for this month. The first book I'll be finishing for this weekend is We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. Now, if you watched my video from week 3, you'll know that I started this book during week 3 and I did not finish it. I got around 50% and I just ran out of time for the weekend. So I decided to pause and finish it for week 4. Now, I have the audiobook as well as the physical copy, and my audio loan expires on Libby at 7 p.m. on Thursday night. That's tonight. So I have like a few hours to try to finish this book, and I feel like I can do it. I just gotta kind of like hunker down and get through it. So far I am 50% to this book, and I went into this last weekend knowing almost nothing about what this plot was. However, now I'm about 50%, so I do have kind of a foundation of what the book is about. It's about a heavy metal band that formed, I want to say like in the 90s, and then fast forward a number of years, and one of the leads in the band kind of backstabbed everybody and stole their music, and the main character of the book is Chris, who basically wrote a lot of the music that this band had played, but got screwed over by this other bandmate, Terry, who now kind of has his own band and essentially used his work with the old band to catapult himself into fame. Now, Chris is experiencing a lot of really weird things, like she has no memory of what happened the night that they all signed the contract, signing away basically all of their musical rights to this other guy. And so she's going to try to figure out the truth. That means that she is going to reunite with all of her old bandmates, but discover that something is still not right. And this book has a lot of satanic cult kind of callbacks, and there is something very dark and sinister related to the music that they wrote in their band, and it's all kind of coming together. She is trying to figure out what to do. There's also a second perspective in this story, a girl named Melanie, who is a huge super fan of the bandmates' new band, and so I'm still kind of waiting to see where these two perspectives intersect, but I'm really excited to see where it goes. And so far I'm loving this book, and I am a music person, so all of the callbacks to music, even though I was never really like a heavy metal person, just like the music of this book is so good, and I'm just loving everything about it. So I'm really excited to see where the rest of the story goes. The second book that I plan on reading this weekend is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. This book just came out at the beginning of October, and I have absolutely been obsessed with everything that Ashley Winstead has written. So this is so highly anticipated for me. It's also our November book pick for the Pyramid Book Club, so make sure that you are reading it. If not this month, make sure you're reading it in November so you can join us for our live discussion. This book essentially follows a small town that has like a fire and brimstone sort of religious foundation, and the town is very attentive to the workings of the devil, and there is this myth of like a vampire creature that haunts the town or like the outskirts of the town. And essentially, from what I understand, there's going to be a body or a skull or something discovered in like the river, and the town has to kind of figure out what's going on. But the main character is one of the only people that I guess like knows something or is like gonna try to solve this mystery of what's happening. But it's a lot of combating like religious trauma and like the mindset of the town, and them trying to match that with this mythical monster. Is it a serial killer? Is it a mythical creature? Is it the devil? That's what they're going to try to figure out, and I am really excited for this book. I'm also choosing to read it this weekend because during weekend 5, I will be going to see Ashley Winstead and hear her talk about this book, so I really want to have read it before I hear her talk about it. So that is why this is pretty high on my priority list for this weekend, because I want to make sure I read it before I go listen to her talk about it. The third book that I have on my list for this weekend is Slewfoot. I've seen so many people have been reading it lately, and I just had to get in on the hype. I don't know a whole lot about it. From what I understand, it is about a recent widow who is kind of like on the outskirts of her community and is an outcast, and I guess she meets the devil or a representation of, and basically the town thinks that she's a witch and she's kind of cast out even more than she already was. And I have no idea what to expect from this book, but I know a ton of people have been reading it recently and I am really excited to get into it. I borrowed it from my library and it's actually like a weird size. Like, it's oddly square compared to like other books. There's a really bad glare on it, but like it's just like it's a funky size. I didn't expect the like layout of this book, but I'm excited because one, the story sounds interesting. The cover is like really cool, like it's pretty but like also creepy, and on top of that I also know that there are going to be like pictures in the middle of the book and I don't want to show them in case it like ruins something, and I don't know anything about the book, so I don't know what the pictures necessarily are going to portray yet. I really like imagery and like photographs used in books, so I'm excited to see how they fit in, and I just really want to know what the hype is for this book because a lot of people have been reading it, even though I think it came out a couple of years ago, but somehow I never read it, so hopefully I'm going to get to it this weekend. I have like 2 weeks with my library hold, but I really want to do it this weekend. If not this weekend, I will absolutely be reading it for weekend 5. And finally, the last book on my TBR for this weekend is going to be a Kindle book. I am reading There's No Way I'd Die First by Lisa Springer. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I've been trying to read this book for the last 2 weekends and been unsuccessful. I started this book during week 2 and I got like 10% in, and I wasn't like super invested right from the start, and so it's kind of hard to keep going, and I didn't prioritize this book over any of the other ones, so it's been put off for 2 weeks. I do want to get to it this weekend, but I also feel like I've prioritized quite a few other things, so we'll see if I get to it. But I had the e-arc from a while ago and I never got around to reading it, so I think the book is out now, but I just haven't had a chance to dive in too much. But the story follows a horror movie fanatic who plans a Halloween party that she invites everybody to, and then she invites, I guess, a clown for entertainment, and the clown ends up trying to kill people, and she thinks that because she's a horror movie buff, she knows all the things that horror movie leads have to deal with, so she's like, I can handle this, I can survive and maybe take down the killer clown. I don't know. When I left off at like 10%, I'm pretty sure that it was like the day of the party, but like the party hadn't started yet. So I'm really not that far in. I haven't really gotten to experience too much, but I really want to read this book. I just need to like force myself to do it. So I should probably prioritize this one a little bit higher. I think what I'm going to do is probably read We Sold Our Souls first. Obviously, I'm definitely going to do that first because my hold runs up literally tonight and I need to make sure that I get that finished. And then Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I definitely need to read it this weekend because I want to be done before I see Ashley Winstead next weekend. And then I'll probably read There's No Way I'd Die First next, because Slewfoot, I have some time since I just picked it up from the library. I have like a full 2 weeks with it. So that one's probably going to be the lowest on my priority list for this weekend. But we'll see, because I'm also kind of a mood reader, and if I don't feel like picking up a book, I won't. So we're going to see. Also, last weekend, I ended up reading like a lot of things that weren't on my TBR, so I'm hoping that I stick to my TBR this time because I really am excited about these books and I want to get them done, and some of them I need to get them done, so I'm hoping for the best and I'm really excited to dive in. So I'm gonna go ahead and start reading. I did it. I finished We Sold Our Souls, and I finished with plenty of time before my loan had to go back, so I even got to hit the button that says return early even though it's the day it was due. But it's fine. Anyway, I finished this book and I really, really liked it. I am going to give it 5 stars. I have not like fully written out my Goodreads review. I really like writing out my reviews because then I can like reorder things and just like, I don't know, it just feels good to type things out sometimes. I have not done that for this book, so I'm just kind of still processing, but this was really good. It didn't really know where it was going for a lot of it, but I ended up really liking it. It does follow Chris, the lead guitarist of the band Dirtwork, and her journey to I guess, try to figure out why Terry, the lead singer of Dirtwork, like, went against the rest of the band and went on his solo career, and then, like, stole all their music and stole her career, and it was, like, kind of a weird start in trying to get everything set up, but then Chris starts obviously, like, realizing that things are not right, and when she goes to visit her old bandmates, things take a turn for the worst. Some people end up dying, and she is stuck, like, trying to figure out, like, what am I getting myself into? Something here is deep and dark and dangerous. And she eventually ends up confronting everyone involved and finding out the truth, which was kind of weird. It was like, it's a very, like, satanic, demonic type of deal, that is all, like, rooted in the music that she wrote, or, like, the band wrote with mostly her, when the band was still together. And so I really liked that aspect. It's kind of, like, hard to explain, but I loved the musical aspect, the lyrics of these songs being so central to the plot, and her, like, constantly having to revisit the songs that she wrote when she was younger, and seeing how my cat is, like, trying to attack a bug through the window. That's not gonna work. Anyway, so basically Chris is revisiting all these songs that she wrote and has not performed in years because she had essentially, like, signed their rights away to them, I guess. But revisiting those songs ends up helping kind of propel her forward in her journey for understanding and even, I don't want to say revenge, but just, solving whatever this problem is that she's encountering. And eventually there ends up being this huge music festival that she's trying to go to, but she's banned from it. She's not allowed to get anywhere near, so she has to kind of, like, find a secret way to get in. And she ends up meeting Melanie, who I had mentioned that Melanie's perspective was given very few times, but throughout the story of her being a super, super huge fan of Terry and his new, like, solo career group band thing. And Melanie is going to this music festival and she's a super huge fan, and I just was waiting for the intersection of these two stories because, like, obviously Chris and Melanie are gonna have to meet up at some point, and they finally do. And I really, really liked when they ended up meeting. I thought it was great. I do want to say it was, like, shortly before Chris and Melanie meet, there is a scene that, like, I literally recorded myself reading it because I started and I was like, oh, this is gonna go down real quick. And so I filmed myself reacting to reading I would say it's the most brutal and, like, descriptive violence in the whole book. It was so good, but it was so, like, oh, we went there. But yeah, so then Chris and Melanie meet up, and I love their interactions. Like, I love the whole thing, and I feel like the Melanie side of things was a little bit light towards the end. I feel like I would have liked her to be tied in a little bit more than she was, but ultimately, I really liked the ending and where everything kind of went, and the resolution, which I don't know if it's necessarily considered a resolution, but I loved the ending, and I thought this was brilliantly written. Grady Hendrix always knows how to create a story that is captivating and dark, but, like, you never quite know what's gonna happen. Even when you think you do, like, something else is gonna still happen. I just love Grady Hendrix, and this book was not a disappointment whatsoever. Once again, I am giving a Grady Hendrix book 5 stars. Not a shock, but I am so happy that I read this. Also because, like, I have a guitar. It, like, sits in my back corner back here. I am not good at playing. Every once in a while, every few years, I'll, like, pick it up and it doesn't go well. But reading about guitarists makes me want to pick up my guitar again. So who knows? Maybe I will start my own metal band. Maybe I won't. Probably I won't, but it's fine. Anyway, now I'm moving on to my next book, which I am still trying to decide if it's going to be Midnight is the Darkest Hour or There's No Way I'd Die First. I really, really want to get through both of them this weekend, but I don't know which one I'm going to go with yet. So stay tuned to find out, because you're going to find out when I do. Okay, I'm back real quick because I didn't realize this when I finished this book. We Sold Our Souls is my 100th book of this year. I'm pretty sure I didn't even get through 50 books in 2022. And I have already hit 100 for 2023. And I still have 2 months left. This is crazy. But also, I love that this was my 100th book. Grady Hendrix deserves that spot because this year I have read so many of his books and been obsessed with every single one. So this is just really fitting, but I just got really excited when I realized that this was my 100th book. And at the beginning of the year, I had no idea how much I would really be reading this year. So my Goodreads goal was like 60. And I surpassed that a long time ago. I don't even know where to go from here. This just feels so good. But anyway, on to the next book. Okay, in the spirit of finishing books that I started previous weeks, I decided to jump right back into There's No Way I'd Die First. So I am reading this on my Kindle, and just from the start, I'm only 17%, so I really haven't made it that much further. But just from the start of this book, and like the description, like going into it, I felt all along like this was going to be like a similar vibe to Halloween Resurrection, which I am a huge fan of the Halloween movie franchise. And they are some of the earliest horror movies that I remember loving. And while I could go into detail about which ones are my favorites, I won't do that right now because it's unrelated. However, so there's a Halloween 1 and 2, and then there's a 4, a 5, and then there's technically a 6, but it's not called 6, and then there's H2O and Resurrection. H2O takes place 20 years later. Resurrection takes place in Michael Myers' childhood home where he killed his family, and it is basically a reality show comes in to this house, and they are filming a Who Can Survive the Night kind of reality show. People are watching the live stream, and obviously Michael Myers is still alive, so he ends up hunting them down in the house, and they think it's all pretend, because at one point there is someone that's dressed up like Michael Myers and they realize that they were faking it, but then when the real Michael arrives, nobody knows that it's really him. And then he starts taking them out one by one. Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks are both in that movie, and that just makes it ridiculous. But anyway, that's the vibe that I'm getting. From the very first time I read the description for this book, that was what was in my brain, because Halloween is such a pivotal part of my childhood horror movie experience. And I would never say that Halloween Resurrection is one of my favorite Halloween movies. It's not. It's not even in the top 3. But it has a weird charm to it in the how ridiculous it is that they host a reality show survival night in the house where people were killed, brutally murdered by a child. So super weird. But I kind of love that movie for how ridiculous it is. And I just need to say I am at 17% in this book, and they did just make a comparison to Halloween Resurrection, but not I'm hoping that by the end of this book they will reference it again, because obviously this is a horror movie buff character, so she is talking about horror movies like the whole way through. Everybody in this whole book just like loves horror movies, so that's like obviously a central theme. But they're talking about like, oh, who do we think would be able to like survive the night if there were to be like, if this were a horror movie, which of us in this at this house would be able to survive? And she calls herself a final girl. And then she compares herself to one of the characters from Halloween Resurrection. And I'm like, I really hope this is like foreshadowing of further comparisons to that, because that's exactly what I thought of when I was going into this book. So like, it's getting a lot better. I think when I first started this book, maybe I just like was not in the headspace to be able to like focus on it, but I am really enjoying it now. These characters are pretty young, but it's still interesting, and I think that the setting is going to be really cool, and I'm excited to see where this goes, because it is starting to get really interesting. Weird things are starting to happen, and yeah, I feel like I'm getting into it more now than I was the first time I picked it up, which is why I put it down for like 2 weeks and didn't pick it up again. But now that I'm back in it, I am really enjoying this, and I'm glad that I'm going to finish this book this weekend. So here's to hoping for more Halloween references, because Michael Myers is my favorite horror movie villain, and like I really appreciate references to movies beyond just the first one. Because as much as I love Jamie Lee Curtis in the first movie, which is a classic and like it's fantastic, but I will say it's not my favorite Halloween movie. It's not. I'm sorry, the fourth one is my favorite. I will just say it. Don't come for me, but the Halloween 4 has a special place in my heart. So I really appreciate when other movies in the franchise are referenced. And the Halloween Resurrection thing just like makes me really happy, and now I can't wait to keep going. Okay, so I just finished There's No Way I'd Die First, and I feel like I have so many thoughts, and I don't know what to do with all of them. I think I'm landing on 3-star rating for this book. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. Like, the first half was setting up the story, the party starting, and the clown showing up. That we know the clown is going to be like going after them, trying to kill them all. The second half of the book was just a whole lot of these teenagers running circles around the house, being chased by this clown, being tricked, running into trap after trap that he had somehow rigged up without any of them knowing. And it was just like a never-ending cycle of them constantly like running into him over and over again. He's like showing up out of nowhere. I closed the door and my cat is trying to like claw their way under the door. I don't even know which cat it is because all I can see is their nose. But anyway, they're just like running circles around the house. Like, it's just like one thing after another. And I know that this was a tactic to like kill the characters off one by one, but it was a lot. And I feel like it became a bit unbelievable because the villain is a human, and yet it's like Michael Myers style where like they never die, despite like a lot of things happening to this clown that should have helped him like a long time ago. And so it was just kind of unbelievable in a way. Like, part of it was like, oh, it's like a callback to like the horror movie villain, like a Michael Myers that just never dies. But also, this is a human, and like they should have died a lot. Another one of the main problems I had was that Noelle as the main character was like kind of irritating. I feel like there were a lot of moments where they were about to get got by this clown and she's like running down the hall and they run into like the next room and they stop in the doorway and she just starts talking like, I just can't believe this is happening. I'm so stressed out. And I'm like, you're gonna be more stressed out when the clown catches you because you just stopped running and like started talking. Or she would like talk so many times about how worried she was about what the police were gonna think when they find all of these dead bodies the next day. Like, she's so concerned about what happens after they survive. And I'm like, maybe you should try to survive first. Like, you're not gonna have to worry about what the police think about you if you're dead too. And I don't think she, like, I don't know, it was just really weird the way she kept focusing on that element. And then, like, in the end, it didn't actually matter. Like, we never actually see anything that has to do with, like, the public perception of the event. So, like, it really meant nothing that she was so worried about, like, oh no, like, I need an alibi that, like, proves that I didn't plan this, that, like, was not in cahoots with the clown. I'm like, I think you need to worry about not getting killed by the clown first before you worry about anything else. Another thing that I found was a little bit difficult for me, it just like became confusing, is that the whole story, like this whole night takes place in one house and it's in Noelle's family's house, which is huge. Like it's a mansion, fancy security. It's huge, right? It's literally called Castle Hill. Well, this place was so big, I needed a map as the reader. Like, I needed a map of this place and, like, where they were going, because there were so many scenes where they're running down hallways or, like, running into rooms, or, like, there's literally a home movie theater. And I'm, like, really trying to see it in my mind of, like, where they're going and what's happening, and I just could not, because the house is too big and there's too many things happening. This book was like talking about horror movies so much. And when I read, I kind of picture things like it's running in a movie in my brain. And this book was perfect for that same kind of thing. It's written almost like a movie, like you could kind of picture as a movie. The problem is I could not picture where they were because the house was so confusing and so large. And at one point, I think she literally said like, oh, that's like on the other side of the house, like in another part of the house that I didn't even decorate like for the party because no one would go into that side of the house. I'm like, how big is this place that like there's entire hallways that you like wouldn't have even stepped foot in, knowing that your whole group was going to be playing like hide and seek at this party. So it's just like was too big for my brain to like fully comprehend. So I needed a map. Also because at one point they get outside. At least I thought they were outside, because they go to the boat. There is a boat on the property. They have a pier. There's a boat and water, and they go to the boat. And obviously bad things happen at the boat, and then they end up going back inside. And then they're like, oh, we're locked inside. I'm like, but you were just outside. Like, a lot of this is the clown locks them inside with biometric locks that only he can open. But they get outside to the boat. And then they go back inside and are locked in again. And then they like are trying to like break themselves back out of the house. I'm like, but you were just outside. I don't understand. Which is, a map would have been helpful for this, because maybe the boathouse is like attached to the house, so they never actually got outside except for like on the actual like dock where the boat was. Like maybe that's how it worked, and so they couldn't have like run through the yard or something. But I don't know, I was just very confused. I needed a map to like fully be able to comprehend where they were and what was going on. It was too much house that they're running around in. However, I do want to say that there were some really good elements to this book as well. I think that one thing that was done really well was the horror elements, the violence, the blood, the gore. That was really good in my opinion. I think that kept me engaged and it was written really well. I just feel like the plot and the characters did not match up with the level of the violence, and I think that's where it was weak for me. So this was YA and the characters were very YA, but the violence was great. I loved the killing. Like, I thought that was done really well. There were parts that I was like actually cringing at. Like, some of them were really good. It was just like the execution of the plot and how it all comes together at the end was very messy. I was very confused by the whole ending. Like, it was a lot happening, and like a lot of things revealed that kind of came out of nowhere. Like, it wasn't even, a lot of it was not even like built up. It was just like, ta-da, this is why things are happening. So I didn't love the ending, and it was a lot. But all that to say, like, I do still think that this is a good book. I still give it 3 stars because I liked it. I liked reading it. It just had some weaknesses to it that, like, it's not my favorite, but I don't regret reading it. And I do think I would read another book from Lisa Springer. I would maybe be a little cautious of it and read the description pretty thoroughly. I mean, I really liked the description of this one, but yeah, I think I would read another one from her. Maybe it would depend on what it is. But yeah, so this book was not great, but not terrible. So it landed very firmly like in the middle for me. And that's like all I even have to say. I feel like I had so many thoughts, and I did write a pretty thorough review on Goodreads. So that's there as well, but like I feel like my brain cannot even like fully comprehend anything anymore. So I'm just gonna shut up now and move on to my next book. So now I'm on to my next book for this weekend, which is gonna be Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. I am very excited for this book. It is one of my very highly anticipated reads for this season, because I will be seeing her next weekend, so I'm gonna read it now, so I am prepared to hear her talk about it, and I will actually know what she's talking about. So I am gonna start diving into that now. Okay, I can't believe I'm actually doing this, but as per Sprints this morning, we were talking about spaghetti, as one does with me, and toothworms, and I was challenged by Carly to read toothworms while eating spaghetti. Now, I don't have spaghetti. I was out earlier, and on my way home I decided that I was really, really craving Panda Express. So I have my Panda Express meal here, and I have my Kindle with toothworms pulled up. So I am going to eat my, I don't know why I didn't hold it up in the first place. I'm gonna eat my, I got like the chow mein noodles. So that is going to be my substitute pasta. But I'm gonna eat this while reading toothworms. And this is probably not gonna go well, but I'm gonna do it so that you guys can see, I guess, because this is entertainment. Let's dive in, I guess. My cat wants to eat it with me. No, thank you. Kobo is sniffing my phone. chow mein noodles actually made this worse than if I was eating spaghetti. I think the consistency of these noodles. Oh, jeez. I appreciate the... Oh, that was a mistake. Pajamas. Besides that, the only thing I lost was some spaghetti. I couldn't look at that stuff the same. Oh, jeez. I'm not even gonna lie. This was really good. I actually loved I actually loved that. And I'm really glad to say that it does not ruin pasta for me, because as we have established in sprints on various occasions, me and spaghetti, we just get along really well, and it is and has been my favorite food like pretty much my whole life, and all sorts of pasta really, but spaghetti especially. And although if I had been eating spaghetti, I don't know if it would have felt any different than eating the chow mein noodles, but I will say that eating the chow mein noodles honestly feels a little bit worse, because these are like, I don't know, it's like it's the consistency of them. But honestly, reading that was foul, but it did not ruin my relationship with spaghetti noodles specifically, so that is good news for me. And now I feel accomplished because I did this, and it only took like 5 minutes, because that was like the shortest short story ever. But also, yikes, don't get toothworms, y'all. I mean, not that you can, but like, it does not sound like a fun time. But this was great fun, and now I still have the rest of my food that I can enjoy, and thankfully my appetite's not ruined, so I'm about to dig in. For a very quick update on my reading of Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I just had a cat on my lap and she jumped down, so now I'm sad. But I am 50% through my book right now, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's very dark, and that's kind of what I expected going into it, but it does like go in some directions that I didn't really expect it to. But at the same time, I didn't necessarily know fully what was going to happen. Basically, the story is following Ruth as the main character in this small town. She's the preacher's daughter, and a skull was found in the swamp, and so now the police are investigating after discovering that it looks like foul play and it was not an accident. So they are investigating a murder, and we are seeing how Ruth is responding to this, along with her friendship with Everett, who has been her friend since they were in high school. I believe it said that they're like 23. It's been like 6 years, I think, since a lot of the flashbacks that we're getting. So it's alternating chapters between the present timeline where they're investigating, finding the skull and trying to figure out who died and how and why, and alternating with chapters of flashbacks from Ruth's childhood. There's an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and then multiple 17-year-old flashbacks from when she was those ages. So we're getting to see kind of how she grew up in this town and how her life as the preacher's daughter affected the way that she grew up to be a young adult and put her into various situations that are very difficult to read, but are kind of setting her up as her character. And I think this book is just, Ashley Winstead does a really fantastic job at addressing very like dark and intense themes and events and putting them into this story that like it just breaks your heart, but also like I need to keep going. I need to keep reading and finding out what's going on. So this book is so good so far. I know that there's so much to come, but like I have no idea what it's going to be, and I feel like I'm scared. Also, I just want to say this book is literally so pretty. Like, it's just a plain teal color, but this is my favorite color of all time. And so reading this book and having it be so pretty, I'm just obsessed. Like, I am obsessed with it. Like, it's just, I just had to say it because it's so pretty, and it makes me want this book to be my favorite book of the year simply because it's also my favorite color. But the jury is still out on that one because I haven't finished it, but I'm still hopeful. She thinks he's Edward Cullen. I am back to do a quick wrap up of weekend 4? Was this Halloween week 4? I already forget how many weeks we've done so far, but I never did a quick wrap up of my last book, and I finished Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead, and I just need to like scream for like a couple minutes. This book, I swear, I don't understand how Ashley Winstead does it, but I am like in awe of her ability to write stories that are so like emotional and intense and like tasteful. Like, it's written so well. This book covers a lot of issues related to religious trauma and the way that that impacts people later in life, as well as the intrinsic darkness in a lot of people and what that turns into over time. And I'm just like obsessed with that concept. I think that Ashley did it super, super well. I loved this book. I read it really slowly, which was kind of frustrating because typically I can get through a book a little bit quicker than this one, but I just found that I kept like reading really slowly, and I can't really explain it, but it sounds like other people maybe had the same problem for no reason. Like, it just, my eyes were reading it really slowly, but it did help me take it in a lot, so that was really good. And by the time I got to the end, like, I really feel like even though I read it slowly, there was not a single point where I felt like, oh, I don't want to keep going. Like, I want this to be over. I don't want to talk too much about the book because we are going to be having our Pyramid Book Club discussion about this in November, so I don't want to like give away everything that's in my brain, but just a couple of things that I really loved about this book. One, the Twilight references were like insane, and I cried laughing when Ruth confronts Everett and is like, I know what you are, like I know who you are. I was like crying because Twilight, right? But just so many references, and like it wasn't just to make references to it, like it actually had something to do with the plot. And I really, really appreciated that. I thought it was so fun, and it was just a really creative comparison because I feel like there's plenty of books where they mention pop culture and they mention books or movies just in passing, and this one used the Twilight books so well and so strongly, similar to the way that There's No Way I'd Die First used horror movies as its propelling like pop culture references, and then this book used Twilight, and I loved it because I love Twilight. I have not read the books. I have to admit, I have not read the books yet. There is a plan to read them in the future, but I have seen all the movies many times. So I really, really appreciated all of the references to that. And then the ending. The ending of this book rocked me. It shocked me to my core. I couldn't tell if I loved it or I hated it, or I hated it so much that I loved it. I still am like thinking about it and I don't know how to stop. Like, it was insane. And I cannot wait to hear Ashley Winstead talk about this book next weekend, because this is going to be such a good conversation from her, because there's so much that's tackled in this book, a lot of really deep concepts and a lot of really intense themes, and she handles them super well. But there's also these other elements that keep it so interesting, that keep it fun and keep it captivating, and then she throws in an ending like that and it's like, why are you doing this? I can't wait to hear her talk and to meet her again, because she is so sweet and absolutely gorgeous, and I literally just cannot wait for this event on Saturday. Yeah, it's on Saturday, which I can't believe is coming up so fast. But that is kind of what I think about Midnight is the Darkest Hour, without going into too much detail, because I do want to save some things for our discussion in November, which we don't have a date for, but we'll be sure to tell you as soon as we get that date established. Aside from this book, I managed to get through quite a few things this weekend, which I'm pretty happy with. I finished We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix, and I really loved that. I gave it 5 stars. And then I also finished There's No Way I'd Die First by Lisa Springer, and I gave that one 3 stars. Then I read Midnight is the Darkest Hour, and wow. But there's one that I forgot to mention because I also read Toothworms, and I will never forget that reading and eating experience that I, for some reason, put myself through. But it's fine. The only book that I didn't get to for this weekend was Slewfoot, and I am sad, but I have my copy from the library for another like week and a half, so I'll definitely be reading it for the last weekend, as well as the rest of my TBR for the final weekend, which includes at least 1 or 2 books for the prompts. So I'm really looking forward to tackling all of those books for weekend 5, once I actually figure out exactly which ones those will be. On top of the books that I was able to read this weekend, I feel like we also had a lot of really fun events happening. I was able to participate in a couple of different sprints, which was really fun, and I had the Harrisburg Book Festival that I was able to go to, which I did create a separate video for, which I'll link down below if you haven't seen that one. But the book festival was so much fun. I got to meet a couple of really great authors, Chloe Gong, Alex E. Harrow, Eric Smith, and Hannah Nicole Mayer, and they were all so nice, and now I have their books, so I am really excited to get to those hopefully relatively soon. I have read Assistant to the Villain, but the other books that I got from the book festival I have not read yet, so I need to get to those at some point, hopefully this year, but we shall see, because my TBR is never ending. And then Saturday night was the Halloween themed snack and drink hour, and that was a lot of fun. I know I had a lot of fun doing it, even though my snack turned out disastrous. Like, it looked really bad. Honestly, I learned my lesson to not substitute critical ingredients, because things can look horribly wrong after the fact. I mean, instead of a witch's hat, I accidentally made a cowboy hat out of my cookie, so yeah, things went a little bit wrong. However, my drink turned out really, really good. And I had some left over and I drank it the next day, and I have no regrets. That thing was delicious. And also, once I drained all the drink out of my glass, seeing the like pile of eyeballs in the bottom was hilarious. So that was so much fun. And then we even sprinted for a little bit after that, which was super fun. I just feel like this whole experience has been a lot of fun, because there's always activities, there's always sprints, there's always people to talk to, and it's just been such an enjoyable time. And I cannot wait for weekend 5, even though it means that it's the last weekend and it's coming to an end. It is an extended weekend, so it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to see what the final weekend brings. But that brings me to the end of weekend 4. I hope that you also had a successful weekend if you've been participating, and I hope that your reading has been going well. Please make sure that you are subscribed to all of the HalloWeekend co-hosts, which I will have linked below, because they are all incredible and make the best content, so you need to make sure that you are following along with their videos. Please also subscribe to me because I am trying my best to keep consistent in putting out videos, and a lot of you know the struggle that I've had. So I don't want you to miss out on any of the stuff that I have coming because I'm really excited for some of my future videos. Comment below if you've read any of these books or what you thought, because I always love to hear what other people think about them, especially if your opinion is different from me. I'd love to know if people loved books more than I did, because that gives me more hope for that book and it's just my opinion. So please let me know if you've read any of them, or maybe you're looking forward to reading them as well. Let me know also if you're planning to tune in to our book club discussion in November for Midnight is the Darkest Hour, because I'm really excited to talk about it after finishing. And the back of the book had some like discussion questions, so I feel like we've got a lot of material to help us talk more about the book and what we've thought about it. So let me know if you plan to join us for that discussion, and we will absolutely let you know in our Discord, which I will link as well. I'll let you know in the Discord what date we end up landing on for the sprints and for the discussion itself. I think I said everything that I meant to say, so I think that's it, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!